It'd be nice if we didn't have to deal with two presidents who are above the age of 75. If you were in an escape room challenge, I don't think you'd pick either one of them to help you get out. I feel like we need to get more faces into the program.
The issue here, though, is if we were in the escape room, all of the young people would be sitting in the corner watching the old people trying to solve the puzzle and then judging them for it. The issue is young people just don't vote.
Welcome back to Middle Ground. My name's John. I host the Radical Empathy podcast. We know you requested this episode. You've seen the pro-Trump versus anti-Trump Republicans Middle Ground. I will moderate today's discussion between pro-Biden versus anti-Biden Democrats. Our first prompt is, Biden is a moral man. If you agree with this prompt, step forward.
I think that the definition of moral is kind of, it's a little arbitrary because, like, you know, saying somebody is a moral man, we all have morals. My morals may not be the same as somebody else's morals, you know what I mean? I would say that I think Biden thinks of himself as a moral man, though.
Yeah, I was piggybacking off of that real quick. I was just gonna say, I think, yeah, it's kind of an interesting question in this context, but I do sort of see Biden as like a, you know, an old politician in that sense, where it's like, you know, he's at the ice cream shop, and he's out walking his dog. Like, I think there's some truth to that image of Biden, but I also think that's not necessarily like the most important thing when you have that much power. So, yeah.
I feel like when we, I'm sorry, do you want to? I was going to say, I think when we talk about morals, we should talk about intention. And I think that if you say he's a moral man, you're saying that he has good intentions with what he's doing. And I think that matters more importantly than what you might consider him doing that he says publicly that we go back on or it's turning out poorly. I think that when we talk about moral, if he's a moral guy, we should look at his intentions.
I don't think intentions matter quite as much as impact. I mean, people can have, like, look at Reaganomics. Reagan had the best intentions for Reaganomics, for his morals, but the impact of it was that it basically f***ed our country permanently.
Do you really believe he had the best intentions when Reagan?
I believe he thought he had the best.
Trickle down.
I believe he thought he had the best intentions.
Let's focus on Biden for now.
Oh, well,
but that's my point, though,
is
like when you ask these people, do you consider yourself a moral man? They'll say yes. And I think that they think they are, based off of what they were raised to believe.
People talk about Biden and the morality in the circle as a presentation of image, and I agree, everybody tries to present themselves as being a moral person, or at least conforming to what they think morality looks like. But I think that something that speaks highly of Biden's character is the Republicans tried to demonize him for leaked texts, and that wasn't part of a presentation of an image. And if you read those texts between him and his son, he honestly just seems like a loving father that's like trying his best, is encouraging his son to like get help. And I've never seen personally anything come from his wife or from his family or from people around him that seemed to imply that he might be of bad moral character inside.
Yeah, again, I just think it depends on each individual person's definition of moral.
Let's bring in our disagreeer, just so they can add it.
Might I go first?
Go for it.
Okay, I would love to. From the beginning of time, he has had no morals. He was against the segregation of schools. He supports genocide. There's not a single person on this planet that has good morals that supports genocide of innocent children. Innocent Palestinians have been murdered for over 9 months, and he continuously sends money to Israel every single day. Nobody with morals funds genocide, period, point blank discussion. Next topic.
I actually have an injection right there because I thought that would come up. I too was hesitant to come. As you saw, I was the last person, and it was primarily for that issue. And I will never try to justify genocide because there is no justification. However, I will say morality, first of all, I don't know if I'm in a position to judge another person's on a spiritual level morality. However, outward facing and giving his platform and his position, I will say he does present, aside from that particular topic we'll address in a second, an outward-facing image, and let's all address the elephant in the room in juxtaposition to the opposition, right? That being said, I will never, ever support someone who supports genocide. However, the reason I'm here on this side, we can just get into it now, and the reason I did step forward is because the reality is, Democrat or Republican, and we've seen it now with the voting from a majority of even Democrats to send weapons to Israel, that no one is really stepping up to galvanize to stop it. And this is a deeply rooted American problem. So if it would have been a foreign president, Democrat or Republican, if it would be his competition, the result would have been the same. And so to me, that's a major issue that also has to do with our Senate. And it has to do with the fact that we keep empowering these people. So I understand where you're coming from, and I'm not here because I will never justify that. But what I will say is when we take into consideration his policies as a whole, that's what I'm looking at. And the one policy that is unjustifiable is a deeply rooted American policy that we have continued to participate in since the dawn of time. And if we're going to stand on business, let's talk about the Congo. Right?
Oh, I'm on all of that. I'm on all that, baby.
Well, that's great. And me and you will probably have a great discussion about it because it seems like we're in alignment on that. But right now, I'm just saying, as far as morality, where is all of our morality? Because we're talking about Gaza, which is unacceptable. But so is what's happening in the Congo. But we're getting global for our phones.
I agree.
So let's talk about all of our morality.
It's all bad.
We'll dedicate a prompt to Gaza, just so you know, so we can.
I'm just saying, I'm against all of it, and the Congo's included. But I don't know how much money he's donating to what's going on in the Congo. I know for sure he's giving over $100 million every day to Israel, and it's equally bad. Go ahead, Mohammed.
I think when it comes to morality, on an individual basis, it's really easy to go off of kind of how someone presents. But when it comes to politics, I think it's kind of different. I think you have to go by inaction, rhetoric, or action in terms of a subject or a matter. So like how we brought up this discussion, I know a prompt is coming later, but when Biden's rhetoric towards a two-state solution, what's happening in Gaza, what's going on over there, I think the inaction that's taking place, along with the rhetoric, that combo makes me question his morality. It's a matter of when you go in with politicians, it's almost impossible to judge the intention of a politician because we have lobby groups, we have everything that kind of infiltrates American politics. But I think we can only go on how they vote and how they act towards it. So there are instances where you say that Biden's morality is kicking in, but then when you see instances where he's not acting, you think that there's immorality happening.
But that's also why I say that morality is it's really hard to judge. Like he presents, it's relative to each person, because if you ask a Zionist person what the moral stance is,
he'd be doing the moral thing currently.
He'd say that they'd say that he's doing the moral thing. If your morals align with a specific worldview, then yes, you will say that Biden is moral. And I'm not saying that you guys are automatically in support of Zionism or anything like that. But
we didn't take it like that at all. I really like the way that you're articulating the whole concept behind morality. So
I think we have to be careful because we can do the moral relativism, but the reality is there is a shared morality that we agree should exist in the United States. So I think the question of yes, but it is there.
We don't currently have a shared morality when it's such a polarizing topic.
I would say we
absolutely,
we absolutely have some form of shared morality. It manifests in law. There are things that we believe that are criminally prosecutable in this country that all of us agree roughly should be illegal. And then there are things beyond that, like lying or I guess cheating on a partner, that we would say, well, these things are also immoral, but they're not illegal. But there is going to be some shared moral basis. Nobody would say that a Nazi is running for president, but he's probably a moral guy because he's moral insofar as Nazis are concerned. I think when we talk about the morality of a candidate, we're generally appealing to our understanding of a shared moral, roughly the shared moral foundation we would expect somebody to come into leadership positions in the United States.
I think with simplified issues, it's easy to say that we do have a lot of common ground. I do agree that a lot of us share the same morals that are whether left or right, we share the ideas that murdering is wrong, killing is wrong, any crimes against children is wrong, anything like that. I just think that once it gets to an issue in where it is so hot button, so hot topic, the relativism really plays a part in it when I'm looking at it from a perspective and then you're looking at a perspective, and then I can find you leaving that conversation extremely immoral, and then you can find me the same way.
True, but I think it's
Let's reset, and then we'll move on to the next prompt.
Okay.
Hey, we've heard you've been enjoying the fact checks in our middle ground discussions, so how about we give you some more? We want to say thanks so much to Straight Arrow News for powering the fact checks in this video. Straight Arrow News is an app and website that is on a mission to raise the bar on journalism in a time of media bias and mistrust. Their team of journalists believe that unbiased news should be the standard and not just the exception. So they report down the middle with facts, delivering news without bias, filter, or spin. Plus, their Media Miss tool allows you to discover news that's being underreported or not even reported at all by different sides of mainstream media. That's why we're so happy to be partnering with Straight Arrow News. The work they're doing gives us a complete picture of the news straight from our phones and tablets with their app. Go to san.com/middleground or click in the description to check it out. By clicking that link, you're not just supporting this channel, you're also supporting a group of journalists that are raising the bar on news and focusing on serving you unbiased, straight facts. Thanks again to Straight Arrow News for partnering with us on this episode. Now, let's get back into it.
I trust the Biden administration. Will the agreeers please step forward?
Yeah, I don't see any reason not to trust the Biden administration. It's, I mean, can any of you guys think of like lies? Or I don't know, people bring up things like they misled us with Dr. Fauci or something weird, but I've been following the Biden administration pretty closely, and I haven't seen any examples of them trying to purposefully mislead us. May have gotten something wrong here or there, but that's why I trust the Biden administration. You got to trust somebody at some point.
I think with everything that's been passed, from the IRA to the America Rescue Plan to the infrastructure bill, like, they have a purpose to pass big policies that are helping American people. The one thing I don't like is statements like Kamala Harris that go against the Biden administration when it comes to Israel and Gaza. I don't like the idea that at the UN we're saying that we're looking for a humanitarian pause, but then sometimes going back and forth on that. I trust them, but I just think that sometimes it feels like we have contradictory statements within the cabinet, and I think that's something that we should hold them accountable for. But other than that, it's like, yeah.
Obviously, this is an incredibly complicated issue, and it's one that has to be handled with a lot of political care. It's true even for Ukraine and Russia as well. And I think that the Biden administration has straddled the line pretty well on both of those issues, way better than I would have honestly expected them to. So.
Yeah, I think the Trump administration caused a lot of doubt in our institutions, and it's bled over to the Biden administration a bit. So I'll be curious to hear what these guys who don't trust the Biden administration have to say.
Yeah, well, let's bring in our disagreeers.
Should I go back on that?
All right, Devin, raising your hand, go for it.
Okay. You shouldn't trust anybody in the government ever. Certain times they might have a policy that's good, but no matter what, if somebody offers them, hey, $2 billion, they'll take it. A Biden administration cannot be trusted. Anybody that supports genocide cannot be trusted. Anybody that supports taking away, you think that he's for our rights, but he's really not. They're trying to ban regular cars. They're trying to ban regular planes by 2030. They're literally stripping away our rights, just like the Republicans are trying to.
Yeah.
Do you trust any?
Yeah,
What do you trust?
Devin, just to could we tease out what specific things, what specific criticisms do you have, like, that are unique to Biden as opposed to just all?
Let's see. He speaks of COVID that was created. Fauci was part of that, like he was the AIDS scamdemic. My grandmother and several other people listened to him and took the vaccine and died. So yeah, I don't trust him after my grandmother, who's never been sick ever a day in her life, got a COVID vaccine and died.
I think if you're going to bring up the AIDS pandemic, then I'm going to
He was
bring up
part of Fauci. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I would say that I will give Biden credit on the federal emergency against monkeypox.
Keep giving him credit, 'cause why he
Well,
depopulating
you just said-
people. That's all he's doing to the population, baby.
You
Look it
just
up.
said that, you know.
No virus has ever been isolated ever in life. It's all been a lie since.
Let's let him respond. And
Okay,
we gotta
right,
move
but
on.
I'm just
Can I go
saying.
real quick? Just very simple, very quick. My thing is very, I don't really trust any administration entirely. I think that is a mistake. I think it's important to just be constantly using discretion, no matter if it's your people, if it's the other people. I think we like to, you know, gallivant this idea of American exceptionalism and like, we're so cool and we do it. And it's like, you know, Obama might have been a good speaker. He also vaporized 30,000 civilians. You know what I mean? So I don't really trust any particular administration. I know that's a little bit more general of an answer, but yeah, I don't trust a lot of them.
Personally, I don't trust them to protect us from what happens if Biden loses. So like, I'm not pro-Biden specifically because I don't see enough being done to protect us if Republicans win. Like, there's Project 2025 that they're planning. They have all these plans, and I don't see them talking enough about, okay, well, they have these plans, so worst case scenario, here's what we have planned to stop that if it happens. I personally I'm a person who likes to have fail-safes. Like, I don't see that happening. I didn't see that with the Supreme Court failing to codify Roe versus Wade for how many years? How many years? Why was that not?
I don't understand. Is the Supreme Court codifying Roe v. Wade?
Sorry.
Congress.
Congress.
You mean
thank
Congress?
Yes.
Well, they didn't have the votes. Take 60 votes in the Senate unless you get rid of the filibuster.
But I'm saying though, like, we had all of the time. We had so many times where we were in power as Democrats.
If we don't have 60 votes in the Senate, we can't pass a bill.
Why? No, I mean, why don't we have the 60 votes? Why are we not
People aren't
working
voting.
harder?
People are not voting for Democrats.
But why are we not working harder to reach out to those communities? Why are we not listening to the communities as to why
Because
they're
we're
not?
sitting here saying Biden supports
Do you think,
genocide.
So as a disagreeer, I just want to give my objection as why I disagree, take that opportunity. So I do agree with a lot of what you said, John, some of what you said also, Rebecca. I do believe that we have to have discernment, and as citizens, we have to really start to engage in our civic duty of like holding people accountable, and not only holding people accountable, but also running for these offices, right? Because at the end of the day, we're not a monolith. We have very different views. You know, we're a huge country. And at the end of the day, we need to have more people participating in this process. And I don't ever want to get too comfortable and too complacent. That doesn't mean I inherently distrust them, but I don't necessarily trust anybody blanketed, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Now, I think when it inhibits you from voting or being active, then you're just not participating, and that to me is also unacceptable.
Yeah.
But I do think that there has to be some discernment, and I chimed in at this point, one, because I'm a disagreeer and I wanted to give my input at that and take that opportunity, but two, when it comes to not voting, as you guys said, that is why I did not come and sit down and say that I trust the Biden administration, because I think that we have this exceptionalism in this. And we're waking up because of the things that's happened in the last 5 years to, we're gonna get somebody in office and they're gonna take care of us and they're gonna resolve everything. And at the end of the day, I don't care what you believe, whether you're pro, I don't even care if you're a Trump supporter. We have to get out of that mentality and we have to be active.
Yeah. The people like screaming, "Please save us, President Trump!"
Yeah. Right.
Like we're no better or worse if we think that a Democrat is going to come in and rescue us from
100%.
all of that.
I think the biggest issue is just culture war, as far as I'm concerned. I think the transfiguration of this political process and you know, conversation about it, which of course I'm sure even in the 1980s was heated at the dinner table, right? It has turned everybody into like, I'm on this side, I'm on this team. And I just think that is fundamentally like antithetical to like critical thinking, to thinking for yourself, and to working together to build a better country.
I also think you have to be really careful when people talk about trusting or distrusting the government. I think a healthy level of skepticism is important for everything. But when people say things like, I don't trust anybody that works at the FBI, I don't trust anybody that works in this administration, I don't trust anybody that works at the FDA, there are like millions of people, depending on how local or federal you want to get with the government, that are employed by the government. Most people are just trying to do what they think is right.
For sure.
Most people that are employed by the government are trying to do what they think is right. This idea that all of them are like kind of like colluding against the American public to harm you in some way. Not that I don't think anybody's expressed that view exactly, but I know that there seems to be some undercurrent where people will like distrust anybody that says that they work for government. It's like most people are ordinary citizens.
No, for sure. And I have family in politics too, so I would agree with you. But it's just the sense that I guess a better way I would answer this question is I don't implicitly trust them just because like they're Biden's administration.
You said you have
And I just
family in
don't
politics?
pass
My grandmother, I want to share, my grandmother's the first black NAACP president in her era in New Jersey. She's worked with a lot of different presidents. She got to meet Obama. She took a lot of pride in seeing Obama elected. And I've followed her because like I said, she was one of the first black NAACP presidents. I study history. I study her beginnings. I still study where she started. And I've seen what the Democrat Party has come from then to now, and I don't like it. I've always been pro-Democrat.
Trusted her.
I mean, I trust her because she just wanted equality. She fought and worked with different presidents so blacks can get jobs, so they can have the same opportunities. And she had a doctorate. She would talk her shit, but she had morals that she wanted equality for everybody. She wasn't taking money like, oh, somebody's big pharma, whoever's giving me this money, I'm gonna support this, or support genocide, or support this. She had in her heart that she wanted equality, and that's what she stood for everybody, primarily people of color, but for everybody. She wanted everybody to have the same rights. And I've seen the administration just go down, 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 the more we trust them.
Can I ask you, what keeps you a Democrat?
Like I said, I'm starting to lean to the independent side. Okay. I like the original views of, not the original, because you know the Democrats and Republicans switched at some point. Yeah. But when they spoke of being pro-freedom, being pro-rights, and actually seemed like they meant it, I grew up studying history because of her place in politics and seeing how the administration has went from 60s, 70s to now. My grandmother, I have pictures of her and Coretta Scott King. She was really, really a part of the movement. And to see what the Democrat Party has become, I want to stay a Democrat because of her work and continue her legacy, but I just don't like what it's become. I hope that I could be a change, hopefully carry her legacy on in some way, eventually, but it has to be a collective effort. It can't just be me.
I think that one of the biggest issues I have with trusting any administration is that there are people, because I work in the nonprofit spaces, so I do work with some local politicians and a lot of people who are just in nonprofit in general. The people who are really trying their hardest to make it better quit so quickly because the system is so fucked. So that the people who are more corrupt, they just continue to grow and accumulate power. And but that's a broken system that makes me not able to trust the administration.
Does that challenge what Steven's saying, where it's like this, everybody who works, or most people who work in government are trying to do what they think is right?
No, I do agree with him, but most of the people who are still trying to hold on to those morals, they quit very quickly. There's a high turnover rate.
I think
that most people who are working in government are not people whose names that you would ever know. You know what I mean? And they're not going to rise through the ranks and achieve the power that's going to fix everything, because the system is so fucking broken that it beats them down. I've seen it happen to so many people, so many good people who really have those good moral values, who are like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to change the system from inside, and they're just so broken down by the end of it.
You asked me earlier, why do people not vote for Democrats? Why do you think they don't vote for Democrats?
I think that people feel forgotten, and I don't think that they feel protected by the Democratic Party. I know a lot of the people of color that I've talked to feel as though they are spoken over by white Democrats, and that kind of alienates them from a lot of the Democratic Party, because a lot of the Democratic Party, even though we are more diverse than the Republican Party tends to be, they still feel spoken over and they don't feel represented. And so it's like constantly choosing between like one Republican and a Republican wearing blue. That's what I've heard.
Do you think they noticed the results, like record low Black unemployment, record Black entrepreneurship under Biden?
I think that they noticed some of those results, but when it's not helping them with their personal communities, it's very hard for them to say yeah, Biden helped me, when
they
they're
apply
still
for jobs, not Biden.
Especially if they're not super tuned into politics.
Exactly.
Like a lot of these numbers, because we're looking for them, we know that there's a historical unemployment rate for Black Americans now under Biden. And we have one of the lowest unemployments that we've had, I think it's ever, yeah. And so I think a lot of people aren't tuned into the statistics of it. I think they go based on perception. I think this is just human nature.
Don't you think they see that though?
I don't think on a day-to-day that people can really quantify it when they just have a run-of-the-mill job or anything like that.
I don't want to take away from the fact that the Biden administration has contributed to that, because they absolutely have by many of social justice initiatives, and this will be very brief. But I also want to say, as a result, as the Black community always has, and their resilience, they saw what happened with our last administration, and they picked themselves up by the bootstraps, because inherently we are entrepreneurs. It was illegal for us to learn how to read, and a lot of people don't realize before the Slaughter Acts, we actually had former slaves that were in offices, legal offices.
Yes,
and then that is, and that has a lot to do with when the party switching started happening in different acts. So at the end of the day, much as we have always done, we saw what was happening, and we decided we got to come together, we have to galvanize, and we've done that like never before. Not to discredit the Biden administration, say they haven't contributed, but Black people have done that for themselves.
We're not
as
giving
a
Biden
result.
credit.
But that's also another thing that I've heard, particularly women of color say, that turns them away from the Biden administration, is that not only do they not feel represented, but they're so fucking sick of everybody coming in and expecting Black women to fix it. That's just what I've heard.
We can apply that to a lot of
spaces.
things. I think that there's some things that you've said that I agree with, and there's some things that this gentleman says that I agree with. And I still can't take a seat, because I'm very facts-based. And the thing is, even though what I said I stand on, I still can't dispute the fact that it is at an all-time high under the Biden administration. I just wanted to provide more context. But the things that both of you have said, I've actually agreed with to an extent.
Let's move on to the next prompt.
I try to be pretty fair.
We need somebody more progressive for president. Will the agreeers please step forward?
I personally am of the opinion that we need somebody more progressive for president. I am aware of the attempt that Biden has made to try and cross party lines. That's always been who he is historically. He has always tried to be friends with the guys on the other side and try and get them to see reason. I don't see that being effective when every year the conservatives get more and more conservative. And the Democrats, from what I have seen, just continue to kowtow to it and be like, okay, well, we'll give you an inch, they take a mile. Okay, we'll give you another inch, they take another mile.
Yeah.
How many?
On and on it goes.
On and on it goes.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, and I think that like what she was saying earlier about believing in accountability, this is my personal belief in accountability from the Democratic Party. I think we need to take a harder line and be more progressive. Like they always say that we're progressive and insane and that we're gonna try and take away their rights, but what have we done?
I'm not seeing it. Yeah, I completely agree. So not to be this guy, but you know, I'm LGBT, so as a result of that, over the past few years, I have seen the culture shift so tremendously in this bigoted direction. And obviously the president is not in charge of the culture of a country, but you know, I think it's a part of the equation, you know what I mean? It's a part of the equation. And I suppose it's just very hurtful. I remember last Pride Month, I was so angry all month. I didn't feel any sense of connection and community. And I'm not gonna be like dramatic and be like, and I was scared, because like, you know, I'm a tall white guy. Obviously I'll be fine, I'll be fine. But the point is, that sucks and that breaks my heart. And you know, I'm a very progressive person, I'll be the first to say it. But yeah, I think we need someone to get in there and kick ass and change a lot of things. I think, and I know that is such a minuscule, like, you know, facet of everything that's going on. But I guess the reason I plant my flag there is because it affects me so personally. And I've felt that culture shift during Biden's presidency, you know? Because like when I was in high school during Trump's presidency, there were people saying slurs to me all the time. It's fine, like well, it wasn't fine, but you know what I mean? Like it was something I got accustomed to, but I haven't seen the needle switch back since Biden became president. I've seen it go the exact opposite way. And I'm also not the most informed person when it comes to policy or things like that. I'm simply talking about from a cultural perspective, from what I've felt, what I've seen, and what I've read. And so with that in mind, yeah, we need someone with fresh ideas.
Like the thing is and I hate saying this, but like the Republican Party, when they're in power, they go balls to the wall.
Oh yeah.
Why don't we go balls to the wall to
saying.
protect? That's another thing for
I
me,
totally agree.
where I was like, why are we not working harder to protect ourselves from if there is a Republican presidency? Because you know that is exactly what they do.
Absolutely.
That's why it takes so long for Democrats to try to like do so much, is because they're trying to unfuck up everything. Okay, well, why are we not doing the same?
100%, yeah.
Devin.
I definitely think we need a more progressive president. If it's one thing if he was around before desegregation and actually is making waves, but I don't see much improving. He was a part of the time during segregation. He was against desegregation. I don't trust him. I think Biden.
Who are you talking about?
Biden. He was against desegregating schools. And I've just seen like what people, like for example, my grandmother, what people are working towards, he acts like he's for it, but he's really not. Like he's just not there. And I feel like we need somebody that is a fresh face, that actually is conscious, that can look at both sides and take, okay, you got some good points, you got some good points, and incorporate as a whole, opposed to just pushing the 1%'s agendas.
Let's bring in our disagreeers.
Okay. So I want to jump in because I was able to jump in last time and I got a lot to say. I think that he's the most progressive president in his administration than we've had in a long time. Some would even argue more so than Obama. I'm not saying I argue that, I'm saying that has been said. He has the judicial bench, which is your federal appeals court, your federal district court, and obviously the Supreme Court, right? We all know he got Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, you know, in there, and she's more than qualified, right? But what we also don't talk about enough is the fact that 75% of his appointees across the judicial bench are women. 65 of those are people of color. Now, you sparked a thought in me, sir, when you talked about the LGBTQ community. Well, President Biden actually has made it so LGBTQ folks can more readily serve in the military without having to go through all of this red, unnecessary tape, because they're citizens and they have that right. No other president has done that. Also putting them in the leading positions of government. No other president has done that. Full circle to this discussion, he does not act alone. Right? So when you say he's not progressive, there's things he's tried to push through, and he did not stack the court because he is trying to be bipartisan, right? Because then they're going to go back and stack the court. Now, to your point, sometimes you got to just play ball. So at the end of the day, I get it, but I am not willing to have a conservative court. Project 2025 is very, very real. He's not acting alone. There are other branches of government, and we need to exercise our right as citizens, and it is imperative during this election because we may not get another chance.
I also think
want to
it's really
point out-
important that when people talk about like the Democrats need to go in and win because the Republicans are winning so much and we're not doing enough, I think it's easy sometimes to see when things are bad, but it's really hard sometimes to see when things are actually going in our favor. The Democratic Party has issues, and there are things that I think if you're more progressive, you should be pushing them on. If you're less progressive, you push them another way. But the Republicans are literally tearing themselves apart, and it's hard from the left to see that. But for the first time in U.S. history, you've got people that can't hold their speaker position in the House. That is tragic and hilarious at the same time. You've got I'm pretty sure he was the most popular man in media, maybe worldwide, Tucker Carlson, who gets fired from Fox News because he gets caught lying about basically rigging an election, and then there are leaked texts showing how unhappy he is with Donald Trump being the president. This is your largest man in conservative media that hates the fact that the president is the president. You've got things like January 6th occurring. You've got these felony indictments that he's both facing and been convicted on. You've got a Republican leadership that is praying, as much as you might not see it, they're praying for the day that Donald Trump is gone. You've got a man who was so vindictive in Georgia that he didn't support either of their runoff elections because he was so mad that Raffensperger wouldn't plot with him to overthrow the election. So even though it feels sometimes like we're always losing as Democrats, Republicans came in saying they were going to repeal and replace the ACA. They didn't manage to do it. They didn't replace anything. They might have repealed it a bit, but they didn't have that vote for McCain. They didn't pass any major legislation. They got their tax cuts, and that was it. The Trump administration was a failure. They didn't even get their border completely built. They didn't get the money from Mexico. They didn't get anything
But even
that they
more
wanted.
than focusing on what they didn't do, like, let's acknowledge what he has done. $400 million to climate change, like, that's important. In 50 years, if we don't stop messing up soil degradation, we're not going to be able to have
400 billion.
400 billion. Excuse me. Thank you. No, thank you for correcting me. No,
Largest
seriously.
ever.
The largest ever in the president. So, like, how much more progressive can you be?
I was just gonna say, like, I feel like we lose the discussion what progressivism is. You brought up the LGBTQ community. Human Rights Campaign goes through a whole like calendar timeline of him signing going against the license to discriminate that Trump put in, him putting in the Respect of Marriage Act that made same-sex couples tax code and benefits.
Removing the Muslim ban.
And yeah, the citizenship for straight same-sex couples that get children from across border lines, that they now have citizenship. Even trans people in foster care, LGBT youth is protected more, and the ACA has been expanded to not discriminate against people seeking gender-affirming care. You have this DOJ taking Tennessee to court for their trans ban. I just don't know what we're looking at when we talk about progressivism anymore with like clean water too, with the IRA, the infrastructure bill. There's so many of these things that we're talking about: clean drinking water, safe energy emissions.
Still don't got clean drinking water.
And that's why he put it forth.
Exactly, $260 billion in investments.
Let's not go down that specific. I want to hear her.
I just want to state, I don't think that any of this is Biden in particular. I do not think that Biden is solely to blame. I'm not delusional enough to be like, oh, well, Biden is the curse of all our problems any more than I think that Trump is the source of all of our problems. I think that Biden is a symptom of an issue that I'm seeing with the Democratic Party, in which we're not fighting hard enough, in my opinion, for specific policies that I'm very passionate about. I'm not saying that he has not made any sort of progress. I actually do believe he has made a lot of progress, but the things that that I would like to have seen that would make me feel safer as an American in this country are things that I am not currently seeing.
Can I ask you, because I think you might represent a large demographic of people who feel the same way, can you share with us what some of those policies are? Because we know what he has done, but we don't know.
So for me personally, I'm seeing a lot of, for one, the Supreme Court overturning Roe versus Wade. That terrified me. And again, that's a moment where I don't hold Biden accountable for that. He's not the one who stacked the Supreme Court. That is also a problem of the Democratic Party. I do think that certain Democrats should have resigned before getting so sick that they died in office and leaving that position open for a Republican incumbent.
Well, the fact that you have lifetime appointments is problematic in itself.
Exactly, but that's another thing. Why are we not making changes to those kinds of policies? Because I am terrified of the fact that if there is a Republican candidacy and 2 people resign, we're stuck with those guys for life. And I don't feel as though I am safe as an American citizen under that sort of rule when they have already stated that there are policies against birth control, against gay marriage, against basically human rights that they are aiming to attack. And if it's the Supreme Court's decision, like, what the fuck are we gonna do?
I think what bothers me, and I'm sorry, I'll let you go. I'll just make it quick. We always talk about like, oh, the Supreme Court, oh, ratifying, oh, why don't we have more votes? But I think the best way to empower voters, we talked about empowering black voters, is to tell people when we're in the media, like this media space, what accomplishments he has made. And if we don't do that, if we just sit here dogging like, oh, he ate ice cream and he doesn't care about Israel, Gaza, I don't think that's gonna do anything to help us get more seats.
For the record.
I understand, but you realize that joke is said on Fox News 24/7, Fox and Friends, and I don't think it's a joke to the people who say Trump save us anymore. And I don't think it's a joke for people when we ask them, what's progressive policy do you want? I don't hear the joke anymore. And so I think instead of putting him down in every single turn, we can say, look, he has done this. Look, he has done that. We should go out and vote because of what he has done.
What you said was super valid, but I just, 30 seconds, I jumped in with this is what he's done, because what you said is so important.
Well, I think Biden's been awfully progressive. This is the first sitting president to walk the picket line. I mean, unions are a huge deal, and that's a big step from Biden. He tried to forgive $400 billion in student loans, got shut down by the Supreme Court, so it came back the next day, and he's forgiven $160 billion for 5 million people, and that means a lot. Now, I voted for Bernie. I'm a progressive.
I'm also
I voted for Bernie in the primary, but I warmed up to Biden because I value competence. Now, I realize you got to bring all these people together. People don't understand how this Senate and this House of Representatives work. We need competent people, and I honestly think Biden has taken us forward, and the progressives have had an impact on him, so keep the pressure up, but get behind the man,
and don't
get
let
behind
the
leader.
media polarize you. You have to do your own research, and you have to learn what he's actually done.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm so gracious and I'm so grateful that you said what you said as far as like, you know, when we say certain rhetoric, it doesn't help, because I had to educate myself. I said, what has he done? Because you might surmise at this point, I'm not just going to give anybody anything, but I'm also not going to take anything if the person is deserving of it. And he has been by far the most progressive president. I did not know that, so I wasn't educated. I thought I wasn't aware of that, and I have no problem saying that, because the minute we start acknowledging that we don't know everything, then we can start learning. And the reality is, he is the most progressive president.
So in the same token, that where you can celebrate his wins, I agree 100%. Is that you have to be realistic with what he's done, with the progression he's made in terms of legislation. Like you mentioned way earlier in the beginning of this video, is that we've seen legislation that Trump in his 4 years couldn't have imagined of passing. Specifically the infrastructure bill, which he tried to do. I just think that at the same time that I don't necessarily like the idea, and I'm not saying any of you have posed it forward, of pulling any punches because of the overarching, fear of Republicans taking it. So that's my only point, is that I'll celebrate his wins because it's facts.
But why not restrict that to the primary? Primary's over. It's time to get behind Biden.
I just would go along with the idea that maybe it can help progress forward as well, is that where we can make enough of a noise about what we need better from him, whilst again being fair in and celebrate what he's done.
So besides Palestine, what do you think we need better from him?
I think we need the idea of consistency amongst his administration. So when we go and we see that he's being kind of positively ambiguous about the Israeli proposed ceasefire deal, and we're hearing that the UN representative of Israel is saying that we're going to continue this on. So like, I don't know about any ceasefire deal that he's talking about, we're going to continue. So that's kind of the idea, is that I don't see a really set, justified, solid position from the administration that's kind of collaborating with the Israeli position.
I think that when people talk about Biden too, I think the feeling that the pro-Biden people get sometimes is they wish that the Biden, I don't know if you say detractors or people that are trying to push him more, would speak about like Biden and instead of Biden but. So saying that I really think that Biden is doing a decent job as a president and I wish that he would do more for these particular issues, rather than I really like Biden as a president, but he hasn't done anything for X, Y, Z. Like there's only so much that he can do. You're sending the man into the arena with only a shield, a 50-person Senate, and you're expecting him to accomplish miracles. And the reality is, if you really want to see what a fully unleashed Biden looks like, you've got to get him more votes in the Senate. It would be so important to see what he can actually do for the country.
And that's on us as the people.
Look, I'm willing to admit, Devin wanted to.
I want to say, you guys can say what you want. You can judge me if you want. And I know it's going to come down between Biden and Trump. I'm not voting. And I know that you can say whatever you want to judge me. We're either way, in my opinion. So, like, honestly, I hope Jill Stein will get a chance, which she won't, because the 1% runs the world. But I don't have faith in either one of them. I cannot, in good faith.
But Devin, why are you here then?
I know.
Because I am Democrat originally, but I want to see the party grow. But I really hope that a miracle can happen.
I have to just say,
the World Economic Forum and Big Pharma got their hands in everything.
Devin, I appreciate you responding to my assertion, and then I cut you off.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Wow, you're good at your job. Yeah, I was just going to say, no, I'm willing to admit it's an emotional thing for me. You know what I mean? It's because of very specific treatment I have faced when I was a kid. Just being out and about, I've had some really nasty shit. I've had my life threatened, that kind of stuff. So I'm willing to admit it's emotional for me. I'm not going to be looking at it, sort of what Muhammad was saying, examining my biases. I'm not going to be able to look at it from a completely three-dimensional, fair perspective. But
What is it? I'm sorry, I'm not.
It? Being discriminated as a.
No, but what is it keeping you from?
What's the question? I'm sorry.
What are you looking at? What can't you look at fairly?
Yeah, what can't you look at fairly?
Oh, just like the issue as a whole, I suppose. If Biden should, if we need someone more progressive, or if he's progressive enough.
But don't you think that's kind of selfish?
Do I think it's selfish to use my experiences to
affect
express my opinion?
Well,
to affect?
That will have.
That's your vote, right?
I think if more people were honest with themselves, everyone votes from a somewhat emotional perspective.
That's all I'm saying. That's all
because, and that's just, as much as we all want to be like, oh, I'm non-biased, I'm non-partisan, I'm non-this, non-that, we all come from an emotional perspective. He's just being very upfront about it.
Because you guys made some very excellent points, so I'm just making the point that you're right, I am emotional about it, and I probably can't examine
I can't speak for everyone who is not, like, who is anti-Biden. I just want to say that, like, for me, being anti-Biden does not mean I am not voting. I think that voting is an extremely important part of democracy. And just because I am anti-Biden does not mean I will not be voting for progressive people lower, because I think that it is the lower, more.
But those down ballot individuals have endorsed Biden, like Bernie and AOC.
I'm aware that they have.
And so how can you know better? Do you feel that you?
I'm not saying I know better.
But don't you think they know what's best for this country? These people are in the system.
But I am saying that they don't know my morals. It's from an emotional spot, where I am saying that I cannot get behind him.
We've been on this prompt for too long, so we have to move on.
Okay. The shooting at Trump's rally will change the course of the election. Will the agreeers please step forward?
I don't wish that he died.
But you just said that you'd be happy if he did.
I don't condone violence,
but I hope I see
someone out there loves
wait, hold on, Alex, repeat that again.
I want you guys to both say this out loud, very clearly.
Wait, what did you just say?
I said I don't condone violence, but I hope I see something.
What does that mean?
It means that Trump got it coming to him.
You know, look, I categorically reject all kinds of political violence against all people. I see you readying your next line for your Tucker Carlson audition tape. Hold on to
Tucker Carlson's my biological stepdad. Go ahead.
Okay, so you didn't have to practice it.
Are you gonna rage quit?
I was just disappointed in you, honestly.
Okay, can you everybody just shut the f up so I can talk?
Biden is supporting genocide. Biden is supporting genocide. Agreeers, step forward. I haven't heard from you in a minute.
Yeah, so I take this issue pretty seriously because I am a first-generation Palestinian American. Both my parents are Palestinian. And I just think that we go and it's nice to specify terms into what's actually happening and what's going on. But regardless, I more want to talk about the response as opposed to what's going on in general. There's the Israeli-Gaza war. I think that the Biden response has been disastrous. I just feel as though that Biden's administration is not really on the same page when it comes to making statements even about the Israeli-Gaza war, where we have such a confident Biden come up and talk about an Israeli-led ceasefire proposal. And then just 4 days later, 5 days later, you have the UN representative of Israel saying they vow to continue the war. And so it's almost as if, I know that the situation in Israel in terms of their government is already fractured. Is already at an all-time high, tensions in the street. You have probably the most active street protest that Tel Aviv has ever seen. It's just interesting to see the inaction of the Biden administration trying to, I guess, kind of put a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. That's the best way I can describe it, where you have the pier being built and then you have airdrops going on. But really, I think that the U.S. has the pull internationally to put an end to it and to get the hostages home and then to also just stop the civilian casualties that we're seeing in Gaza.
I would say Biden's cavalier attitude about the whole thing is also very obnoxious to me. There's this video of him standing in he's always standing in the weirdest places, but he was standing in an ice cream shop, literally licking an ice cream cone. And these reporters like, Mr. President, how about that ceasefire, man? And he's like, it's like Tuesday or Wednesday of that week. And he's like, maybe next Monday.
He said, should be coming.
Yeah, should be coming next. Yeah, and then he gets asked later that week, I think that Thursday or that Friday, and he was like, probably not Monday. So that to me, speaks volumes. I think it's obnoxious. It's not the type of leader I can look up to. And again, I am not necessarily politically educated enough to put a very specific label on it, but I know it's certainly not right. I know that when Israel started attacking Gaza, the population was 40% children, and I say was because I'm willing to bet it's a lot less now. So yeah, I don't necessarily know that I'd use the word genocide just because. Again, I wouldn't say I'm not going to use that. I'm not informed enough. I want to make sure.
Yeah,
before I use a label like that.
I can't really put
But it's wrong.
a hard foot down on saying that
Right.
this is the legal basis that it needs, the international legal basis.
The international legal, like the not the UN,
ICC?
but the ICC has agreed that it is a genocide.
Crimes against humanity.
They also, several years ago, I believe it was the ICC, but I may be wrong, also labeled Israel an apartheid state a long time ago. And I don't think it's asking for too much to just ask Biden to say like, hey, genocide, bombing civilians, not cool.
Chemical warfare.
Chemical warfare. Like, how hard is it to just say that that is wrong?
Joining saying is not enough. Funding the war, it doesn't matter if he says, oh, I support all the innocent children in Gaza. As long as they're sending money to Ukraine, as long as they're sending money to Israel, I don't know what money they're contributing to what's going on in Congo. I have to further look into it if I can speak on that. But as long as he and the administration is giving hundreds of millions of our tax dollars to these corrupt countries or places, you can't even call Israel a country, a state, but Biden continuously keeps letting them, if you're so against it, stop the money. Go to Congress, try to have the money stop being sent there for war. They put a dock there in Gaza. The humanitarian aid they're giving them is not even real food. They're giving them bullshit. If you really cared about the people, he would treat them better. He wouldn't just sit there and look like a fucking retard and go smell kids all day.
Kind of what you talked about earlier in the earlier prompt about trusting the administration. There are facets where you trust an administration, but kind of the inconsistency is what I can't go based on. That's what I take my trust from, is consistency, whether it's a personal relationship or trusting your politicians. And so when it comes to Biden moving a red line, saying that, okay, I mean a ground invasion in Rafah is what's gonna stop me from sending over new ammunitions or new munitions to Israel. And then we see that an Israeli tank, a video is being posted of them going straight through the Gaza entrance sign. It's hard for me to conceptualize any idea that this is gonna stop under this administration. I just have a tough time believing it.
I agree.
Let's bring in our disagreeers. Whoever wants to jump in.
I think that the situation in Gaza and Israel is incredibly complicated. I think that the issue when people talk about supporting a genocide or not is they want to make it seem like there is like one obvious answer or one obvious way to escape that situation. And the reality is that accepting an immediate ceasefire, even if the hostages do come back, but leaving an entity in charge of a region that just committed like the largest terrorist attack in the history of your country, is probably a deal that no other country in the world would ever be expected to accept.
So let's keep giving them hundreds of millions of dollars every year.
Well, we should.
Sarcastically speaking.
I wasn't being sarcastic.
Yeah, I don't.
So I think that
your kids and
I think that
Stephen.
yeah, if my kids were in Israel, I wouldn't want them being rocketed every single day from the Gaza Strip either.
But do you think that not to cut you off in the middle of your statement, but do you think that there's been a change in narrative, at least from Biden's administration and from Israeli officials, about whether it's returning the hostages or completely eliminating Hamas? Do you think that there's just kind of like how we have Ukraine, I'm sure is probably going to come up too, about what is the aim in this war? And then how can we prevent just civilian casualties in general along with ending a war? Because this can't continue. It can't keep going on.
I think that the aim from the beginning was probably the elimination of Hamas. Obviously, the administration, Netanyahu's administration, his government, they're going to talk about saving the hostages, but it's pretty clear the way they're conducting the war that the goal is probably going to be to remove Hamas as the governing body in that region.
And do you think that that's a goal that's been attainable so far?
I mean, they've caused a lot of damage to the organization.
But then we see in the north of Gaza that there's resurgence of fighting, and that so you've made your way down the Gaza Strip to the south, and there's still resurgence of fighting, and so it's not being eradicated in the rate that we're being told, or even if you want to take
I mean, we won't truly know until the war is officially over, the IDF is withdrawn, and then we see.
So how does it end if Hamas doesn't get eradicated? You know, so
well, I mean, eradication could mean a lot of different things. It could mean that they've lost so much. They've lost so much capability that another organization is able to take over. It could be that the PA or the PLO is brought back in, and somehow they're able to govern. It could be that the IDF has some temporary administration there for a few months while it's handed over to another group.
It just seems tough to allow civilian casualties to go on.
How many civilian casualties are enough for it to to be like, oh, we're done.
This is time for a ceasefire.
Why do the Israeli hostages look better than all the Palestinian children? All the Israel hostages that are being released have gained weight. I've seen them starving every day and eating fucking animal feed. Yes, I have. I follow journalists in Palestine. Follow Wizard. No, she's a journalist that's Palestinian that stays there instead of leaving to document it. Every single day I watch it and see children being blown up, being women raped and everything. Don't say it's not happening, because it is.
We've been hearing
Devin,
for 6 months.
No, sir.
Everybody, I just want to pause for a second.
I don't care.
We know that there are strong opinions on this issue.
Say it's not happening is ridiculous.
Let's just all take a collective breath.
Yes, sir.
And then we can pick up back up where we left off. Devin, if you want to make a point, and then we can move on.
It's like saying the Holocaust didn't happen. It's the same bird, different wing. It's a different situation. If you think what's going on with the Holocaust is wrong, and you don't think what's going on with Palestine is wrong, you're a hypocrite. Point blank. Period.
I think if the Jews started attacking Hitler with missiles that were being armed by Hitler's missiles, we could say that probably. But at the same time, we're putting so much of the precedent onto the IDF when Hamas enjoys support from the Palestinian people.
As a Jewish person?
But you were talking before. I feel like
sorry, I apologize. I shouldn't have.
I just think that we should be able to put some responsibility into the Palestinian people's hands. You say eradication, like how do we eradicate them? It doesn't have to be a military objective. There has to be a way to meet in the middle ground.
That's kind of what I'm going off of.
But do you think Hamas is coming where they're operating civilian areas, where they're the ones sending rockets, where they went into a rave and took hostages and raped and killed them? Do you think that they're
I'm not here to justify the actions of any political party. I'm speaking from a humanitarian perspective.
Well, Hamas isn't a political party. They're a terrorist group. PLO is the political party that we recognize.
Separate from their two factions of different entities. My point in saying that was that I'm not in support of anyone in this situation. I'm in support of needless lives dying.
Right.
So my point is that onus, accountability, action, everything like that. How do we prevent people who don't need to be dying from dying is my point.
Do we prevent that by not funding our allies when they get terrorist attacked?
The point is that is there a limit, is there an objective? Like how I would say about the Ukraine, which I'm in full support of against a Russian invasion, is that we need to have an objective that's attainable as opposed to continuing war.
How many civilians is acceptable to you, Mohammed?
I think no civilian is
None.
acceptable.
So
that's
this is
why
a war. This is an existential threat.
So that's what I'm saying. And so at this point, do you think that Hamas has the same capability to cause another October 7th as they were?
Hamas has the capability not to hide within the civilian population and use them as shields. Don't you have any comments about that at all?
I do. I will never support anyone putting civilians in harm's way. My point.
So you should be hyper focused on Hamas and the harm they're putting these civilians into.
So my point is being hyper focused on what I think will cause the most civilian casualties, and so that is the war continuing. So when I know that one party is
this war ends right now if Hamas gives up the hostages and
I don't think so. That's what I'm saying. Is that the aim? Is the war's aim to get back the hostages? Because if it is, do you think the war will end tomorrow with all the hostages?
I think the issue is people. I think it's short-sighted to say that like if the war happens now and civilians are dying, this is a bad thing that needs to stop. Because arguably, if in 2008 for Cast Lead, if they would have eliminated Hamas then, it would have been less civilian casualties, but people would have said the same thing. In 2014 for Protective Edge, if they would have eliminated Hamas.
So there's an overarching problem.
I'm just saying that there is a problem right now. One of the big problems is Hamas, but obviously there's more than
there's more to.
But I'm saying that like if they don't eliminate Hamas now, then what? Do we get another attack in 2025 or in 2030 or in 2035, and then the attack will be even bigger, the population will be even bigger.
But let's put metrics on what the success of eliminating Hamas is. And so, do you think that it's been going well so far in that? When you eliminate someone, you kind of root them out from where they're coming from. And so the approach from the beginning of the war was a systematic approach from the north to the south. And now they've made it all the way down to the southernmost part of Gaza. And then you still see fighting and resurgence happening in the north. Wow. So my point is that if we don't have an aim in this, then when is it going to stop?
Didn't we just get some hostages, like some civilians, like a couple of days ago?
And it resulted in the death of 3 hostages.
I understand that, but you're asking me what is the aim, and we're trying to focus on the aim, but then you're saying, oh well, we can't have this aim because it led to this catastrophe. At what point in war will?
But I'm saying those
guys,
aims.
We've covered your disagreement. Let's pull in Sierra.
All right, thank you. I appreciate everyone's contributions, and I'm really big on listening because at the end of the day, you don't really know your position unless you've heard someone else's. That being said, someone just stated that there is an overarching problem, and I think there is a higher overarching problem. This is my opinion. Now, people may like this, they may not, all the way around here in this circle. For me, personally, I came and sat down because when it comes to what the question was, does President Biden support genocide? He is the seated president right now, and there is a genocide happening, and we are contributing to it. However, overall, right? And there's a lot I can argue about. You know, do I think it's integrous that we push people to Rafah and then attack and we don't stand to what we said on the line? Yeah, I have feelings about that. Do I think that, to John's point, there's a lot of tone deafness? Yes, I have feelings about that. Historically, however, our country has been involved in these type of things for a very long time. And I believe no matter who was in office, like I said earlier, be it a Democrat or a Republican, and most certainly Trump, I don't think we would see a different result. And that's when we as an American people have to ask ourselves why that is and how would we like to move forward. Because I'm about moving forward. And historically, we can go back and forth about the logistics of what's going on. They are our allies. But when we talk about a genocide, there are millions of people dying in the Congo, and I'm gonna continue to say that. But nobody's talking about it because the cobalt that they're dying for is going in our cell phones. So if we're gonna be so morally upset, like, you can see that footage,
So you're saying
but
there's selective
historically,
outrage.
if it's not people of a certain color, we don't care as much. So if you're gonna be outraged, let's be outraged all the way around, but let's also realize that whether it's the Congo, whether it's Gaza, this is our thing. This is what we do, and how do we want to not do that? And we need to talk about a solution as the people, because our tax dollars are funding all of it.
I think we understand there's a lot of disagreement about what's going on in Gaza right now. Who in the circle leading up to the 2024 election, is this your most important issue?
For me, in context of everything I expressed, yes.
Partially, yeah. So it's about a tie for me. So I'll say yes, but it's a tie.
And also, this is something that I feel like I was going to talk about in regards to Biden as a candidate. And I know he's the incumbent and everything, but a movement of the uncommitted movement kind of sparked up around predominant Arab American communities, where you had in a swing state like Michigan, which predicted the last two elections, whoever won Michigan won the last two elections, where 100,000 people wrote uncommitted over citing reasons of the Gaza war. So I think that as a whole, this is something that needs to be addressed and needs to be reflective of what his constituents believe. And so not necessarily going into force of action this way, force of action this way, but this is a hot topic issue for a lot of people and a lot of places that matter. When an election of 340 million people comes down to a couple 100,000 votes on swing states and getting that to win the electoral vote,
and again,
I think it matters.
But Biden won Michigan by 250,000 votes.
That's what I'm saying, is that, and across—
So 100,000 voting uncommitted, it's not gonna do it.
No, I mean, that's raw numbers, but these are people who are citing that they're voting uncommitted because of citing this, but 250,000 people across 6 different states pledged to vote uncommitted for it, along with areas in Chicago and all that. So that's kind of what I meant.
Are you willing to risk a conservative Supreme Court for 40 years?
For this issue, I feel like
For this issue?
For this issue, I feel like—
Really? A conservative Supreme Court for 40 years, shutting down every single progressive legislation that passes, Medicare for all, any sort of—
Roe v. Wade.
Roe v. Wade, anything you guys want. Everything's going to get shut down.
This one, it's been shot down already, like she mentioned, for Roe v. Wade. But my point is that I feel like this is impossible for me not to care about this issue so much to this point, is that I'm from Palestinian origin. I have a Palestinian citizenship as well. So this is integral to me, because this is the issue that I care about the most when it comes to American politics. What can I do as a taxpayer, as someone who is educated in this land, who provides patient care in this land? What can I do in terms of knowing my heritage and then being a Democrat?
I think it's worth saying too, real quick, just because I heard it said earlier, like whether or not there is or isn't a genocide happening is still something that's hotly contested, even in the international community. I heard it said earlier that the ICC and the ICJ decided that it was. That's not true. These are still things that are being hotly contested, even within the ICC, even within the ICJ. We're not going to know the actual answer to that for some number of years. So if that's like your determining factor on this particular thing, I'd say if you're—
That's why I said that I didn't want to go into the terms, because I'm not an international rights lawyer.
We also have to—
But Guy, can you elaborate on what you're trying to say?
I'm saying if Trump wins, if we risk it and Trump wins, I guarantee Justice Thomas and Alito are going to retire, and Trump will replace them with 35-year-old justices that make Brett Kavanaugh look like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So you will live under conservative rule, and the Supreme Court has the ultimate say in this land. So it doesn't matter what
we— Posing the answer to that question, I think for everyone else who raised their hand when they said, is this the most hot button topic, you'll get a more solid answer as opposed to someone who is extremely biased on this topic, who still has family members overseas. For people who I know personally who've been on the ground in Gaza, for NGOs and humanitarian. So I'd give you an answer that you don't want to hear. I'd give you an answer that I would be, because I would want this to end. Because I'm being honest about my biases.
I will say to your point—
This is the most important thing.
I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, that was a good clarification. Our next prompt: Biden's health is poorer than Trump's. Will the agreeers step forward?
Was that health as in like health?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's pretty obvious that Joe Biden is an old man, and I think that's not necessarily an argument against him, but you just have to be real with the situation. I think kind of when we get so heated in a political discussion, we kind of want to avoid hard truths, and I think as an 81-year-old man, he does have health problems that become very apparent when he has to go through long stretches of time talking.
I was just going to say, I think there's something really noticeable about Biden when he starts to talk. That was exactly what I was going to say, because he'll start in sort of a place that makes sense, but it gets rambly and it gets distracted. And I feel like as a president, you have to have like the type of brain where like there aren't any bugs or deficiencies, or I guess not any, but like where you can see things coming as soon as they're going to happen. You know what I mean? Or like react to them before they happen with like intelligence received. And I'm not confident that like if you put footage of something happening in front of Biden, we're like, this is exactly what's happening. I'm not confident he'd be able to tell you play by play what exactly he just saw. I think I just think he's distractible, and I think he's senile, and they need to get this man in a rocking chair.
Yeah, I mean, I think Biden has definitely slowed down mentally. I think even physically compared to Trump, he's probably a bit slower. I don't think that's a difficult concession to make. Both of these guys are, I think, isn't Trump like 79? I think Biden is 81 or something.
Yeah, no matter who wins, they will be the oldest president.
Both of them are still incredibly old. Yeah. Biden just needs to make it through the election, and then after that, I don't care, so.
I just think it'd be nice if we didn't have to deal with two presidents who are above the age of 75. It's like if you were in an escape room challenge, I don't think you'd pick either one of them to help you get out. But then, but when these are our two options to lead the country, it's tough. I feel like we need to get more faces into the program.
The issue here, though, is if we were in the escape room, all of the young people would be sitting in the corner watching the old people trying to solve the puzzle and then judging them for it. The issue is young people just don't vote. So.
Yeah, no, 100% is that whether you're uncommitted or committed, you can make your voice heard, and then we can get our party to start putting forth more viable candidates that we see.
I was just going to say, I think that's a big part of like the reason I'm here and the argument I want to make, which is just that like this is just not how this should be working. Like these two candidates should not be like our voting system should not be like the lesser of two evils. Like what old senile person do we want sitting in that chair more? You know what I mean? Like I want a candidate I can rally behind. I want someone I can be confident in. I want someone I can like look to and be like, yeah, that's our president. I'm gonna go to people and talk about how much like, I'm proud to be an American, because like although this is just one part of the whole machine, it's the face of the machine. And I want to be proud of that face.
I will say that this is a saying that comes up a lot. I'm sure it's going to come up later, especially with some of the other prompts. You're always voting for the lesser of two evils in any democratic election, because you're never going to have a candidate that perfectly represents you. That would be weird if it was the case. It's
unless
a huge
you were
country.
running, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, unless you're running. It's a huge, no, even if you're running, because you might have to make concessions to different groups in order to get your particular policies passed. Yeah, I mean, like every voting system has its issues. Coalition governments have issues. Huge multi-party systems have issues. When you're voting for a person, it should never be who do I 100% ideologically align with. It's who do I feel is going to best represent and carry forward the ideas that I think are important. So things like, for instance, Supreme Court justice picks. Not a person who I would want representing me in my particular Facebook or Twitter group that has every single belief that I have and is ready to go out and represent that to the world.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, let's bring in our disagreeers. And remember, the prompt is Biden's health is poorer than Trump's. So you're disagreeing.
Bit of a disagreement with the prompt itself, because I think so very often, and I don't think this is an intentional thing, but so very often when we talk about mental faculties and things like that, it does go towards an ableist direction. And again, it's not something that is intentional, but I think that people forget that when you talk about the elderly politicians and their rambling, there's things like that disabled people do, and here especially those of us who have cognitive developmental disabilities.
But those people aren't trying to run for president, right? Like,
autistic people, yes, we do.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like, in this specific case.
I know that you're saying in this specific case, but the rhetoric is applied negatively towards other people.
For sure.
And now, I'm not saying that I don't believe that a politician should be cognitively coherent. I 100% do believe in that. It's just some of the things that are said also apply in a negative context to other people and are a contributor to people stripping away the rights of disabled people.
For sure.
However, I also do think that Trump's mental faculties are exactly the same level. I do not think that either one is worse than the other, and physically, health speaking, both of them probably, I mean, it's more not my business, and it's between them and their doctor, but I do not trust that either of them are in good physical health currently.
I do not care about physical health at all. I would rather have Stephen Hawking like at the seat of the Oval Office. But when it comes to health, I think of more like mental health, and I think that Trump is more delusional in a sense. And as a person, I wouldn't want him, a delusional person that only cares about himself, running the entire country. And when I compare him to Biden, I don't see Biden as that delusional. Of course, I'm not going to trust him to solve any equation or a
Rubik's Cube or something.
But is that the metric that we want? Like, should we put everyone in the next campaign in like an escape room and see who comes out first?
I think more the metric I was looking at was when I look at Biden as a career politician, I just hold him to his own standard of how I used to see videos of him. Like
he was sharp.
Yeah, he was
there with
a commanding speaker, and it was always mentioned that he used to ramble. Joe Biden is known, even in his earlier days, that he was a rambler. He would lean in too close and all of that. But I just find it that there's such a sharp difference and such a clear decline from when he was a politician coming up in the 80s, in the 70s, and then to now.
Listen,
so I just hold him to his standard.
I'd also say, wait, really quickly, sorry. I don't think it's like the most important thing. I think it should be a facet, though, of the conversation.
I agree, but I just think we were spoiled by someone like Obama, who came in and was an incredible speaker and was so articulate.
Doing stuff in the shadows,
but if you look back, it's like it didn't matter how big his mental faculty was. How much legislation did he actually pass? How much did he codify in law? How much did he do like Trump and do executive orders? I love Obama, and I wish that that Joe Biden could speak like Obama. But the difference is of what the person has done, despite the fact that some people are saying that his health is poor.
When we talk about poor health, if we're talking about it in terms of someone who's aging, and that's a natural result, and the reality is we can argue if somebody should be running for president, okay, he's the incumbent. That is the reality. Yeah. So the reality is he's running against someone who was a former president, who is a narcissist, you know, and so who also rambles, who has cognitive dissonance, and it's not from a necessary, well, whether he has a disability is, we can talk about that later. But the point is, so if we're just opposing them and we're comparing them, I would rather go with the guy where we know where that's coming from, who also we can look at his policies. If you're rambling and you have sociopathic behavior, and if you're talking about basically doing things in terms of a dictatorship, but then you're also the type of person that reverts and doesn't even stand in alignment with what he says when it comes to his own party, that is extremely problematic. And so I know where this is coming from with Biden. I don't know where this is coming from with Donald Trump. And let's also be clear with the fact that that man almost died of COVID after denying it forever. So
let's not get into COVID. That was a lie meant to depopulate us. Look up a
Well, regardless, the man still almost died.
It's gonna have to be a different episode.
The man still almost died. And I have yet to see a Joe Biden in his age. I have yet to see him have that type of, with his cumbersome schedule and everything and all of the stress, I have yet to see that kind of thing happening.
I want to ask a follow-up just for the group. Was anybody disappointed when when it became clear that Biden was going to run as the incumbent?
I honestly thought he was going to be the best lesser of two evils initially until my grandmother died because of him. So yeah, I was
really disappointed when I found out that we were going to go with the incumbent advantage over picking someone who more aligns with the party and then is kind of just a running voice.
Yeah, we think it's more aligned with the party than Biden, right?
I think Biden is more aligned with, just being a Christian-backed Democrat. I think most of his morals and ideals come from his faith. And he's more center-left. I just think that we can't just ignore the fact that we really banked on the fact that he's the incumbent in this election, as opposed to is he really fit to.
He won the first time, right?
Yeah, he already beat this candidate. That's a really big deal.
I know, but that's more so on the results of the election than him.
If that makes sense, then who's
I think it makes sense, like conceptually, from like the Dems' point of view. You know what I mean? Because he's the incumbent. First of all, he's a career politician. He's someone they've worked with for a very long time. So it makes sense, of course, that they're going to, of course, it makes sense, right? And I get that it makes sense in terms of winning an election, but I guess I'm more here just to make like an argument of sorts against the way it works. You know what I mean? I just wish there could be. I wish everyone could just take like a dosage of reality and be like, this is not the guy who should be like holding the nuclear arsenal. You know what I mean? Like, let's get someone else.
Where do you come up with this? Because I saw his State of the Union speech and he knocked it out the park to the point where people said this guy's on drugs. Yeah. I mean, people just see negative clips that rise to the top. And as far as his health goes, this man is riding a bike. I don't think Donald Trump has ridden a bike in 20 years.
And falling off the bike.
And he is in great shape.
But he got back up.
Yeah, fair enough.
I gotta
So you never
defend
fell off a
Biden
bike?
here. I gotta defend
finish,
him. I just want to say, like, Trump is out of shape. It's clear. How in the world could you say that Trump is in better shape than Biden? Is Biden a little slower? Is his gait a little slower? Of course, he's 478 years old, but he is killing it, man. And
Y'all called to disagree with people. I didn't get my chance to disagree. I disagree.
Yeah, I wanted to pull you in there.
Biden and Trump are both, they're equally bad in different ways health-wise. And I'm not picking at nobody with mental disabilities or none of that crap. Of course, people get older, they age. But still, he's not there. You can see him talking, and he'll sit there and talk, and just all of a sudden he want to take a whiff out of little kids. He's not there.
Oh, come on.
Trump is a freaking piece of shit too, don't get me wrong. But I don't see either one being the lesser evil, one of them being healthier. They both f***ups.
Okay.
Period.
Let's reset, move on to the next topic. Our last prompt. I think Biden has a chance to win the election. Will the agreeers please step forward?
I don't like him. I think Biden might.
This makes me so happy, guys.
True. Were you hesitating?
I was. I was hesitating mostly because I still have doubts, but I like to be hopeful. I like to hope for the best because I like to think that there are enough people who are trying. And my opinion is still subject to change, so maybe something will happen and I'll see some accountability from Biden and I will vote Biden. And I also hope that a lot of the people who are delusional on the other side and thinking that Trump is being guided by Jesus will suddenly wake up from whatever coma dream they're having and see reason. So I am hopeful, but I am still reasonably frightened.
I think the Democrats have a bad habit of being overconfident to a degree. Like, look at 2016, right? They were so sure about Hillary. They were so sure. When the truth is, most people in like middle America, most people when it comes to like, blue collar, like very average people, couldn't stand her, couldn't stand the amount of scandals she'd been in. With that said though, yeah, I do think so. I kind of picking back off what you were saying, I think I would like to hope that enough people would have good sense, because I've got my reservations, I've got my issues. But the truth is, it's a tough battle, and we need every soldier we can get, as cringe as that sounds. So yeah, I'd like to hope so. I'd like to think, and I'd like to hope so.
I really want to ask you guys on what your opinions are on the likelihood. I know it's hard right now. We really don't know anything concrete right now, but what do you guys think the likelihood of the election is going to be?
I think there are good reasons to be optimistic. I know that the reporting is always like so negative on everything, but I mean, the thing is I don't really see how things get any better for Donald Trump from here. He is a convicted felon. I think he was literally last election saying that even if you're under investigation, you shouldn't be running for president. And now he's actually carrying a healthy amount of felonies underneath his belt. There's just so much stuff going on with him. He is such a sideshow. The speeches that he's giving, the things that he was saying about the son or the daughter of the judge, when he followed Laura Loomer's stupid rumor on Twitter and thought that the girl with the Facebook account that the girl with the Twitter account was actually the judge's daughter and was making claims about it. Like, I don't see things ever getting better from Trump as long as the economy doesn't completely nosedive, as long as something crazy doesn't happen. I think that Biden can only improve from here.
Do you think those things are diminishing support for Trump?
I think that the reason why it's hard to see it is because I think that these things are wildly increasing support for Donald Trump in increasingly smaller circles. I think that the people that love him the most will love him more and more no matter what you do to him, but I do think he's losing people on the outside who are a little bit over all of the antics.
Yeah. Have you seen, and I'm not trying to be like an asshole or anything, I'm genuinely asking, have you seen that personally? Because I personally have not, but that's again, anecdotal evidence. I'm trying to mine for some hope here.
We've seen polls that show 49% independents think he should drop out, 15% of Republicans think he should drop out after being convicted. But I think the Democrats have performed phenomenally since 2016. They've learned lessons from that election.
Oh, for certain.
We kicked ass in 2018, 2020. 2022 was a nightmare for the Republicans when it should have been a layup.
Yeah.
And so all the special elections are going our way. Roe v. Wade is really pushing people. People realize what's on the ballot. So I am really confident about Biden. That doesn't mean I'm going to lay back and not fight as hard, but I think we got this.
What scares me was how close it was in 2020 because it shouldn't be this
It's
close,
always close.
when one of the candidates is Donald
So let's do this since we're all Democrats. $1.9 trillion went to the American Rescue Plan after COVID. It's a very hard thing to come back from, right? And that provided more jobs and relief. It took our unemployment rate from the first quarter of 2021 from 6.3% to 3.6% by 2023. So that's huge. Also, there are extreme measures that have never been done before, and the type of verbiage that is used when gun control. That is a very big issue in this country. We cannot keep having people as a teacher. We cannot keep having teachers, and the solution is not to necessarily arm teachers. It's to focus on these children who are our future. And so more red flag laws that he's put into place, y'all need to know about. The fact that he has advocated for universal common sense background checks and the ban of assault weapons. That is very important. That is very important that he's the most forward-leaning president in the history ever on climate change. People need to know, allocating over $400 billion to the infrastructure plan. You know, these are very important things. The fact that our GDP, which stands for gross domestic product, that means the output that our country puts, it's our investments, it's our exporting, the money that we spend. It raised under his administration by, I think, 2021 by 6.4%. These are very important things that we need to know. So while we have this platform, because a lot of folks don't know, I didn't know, you have to educate yourself. You have to educate yourself. And this is an opportunity, as you mentioned earlier, for us not just to talk about what he's doing wrong, but to talk about what he's doing right as a reason to vote for him. And if you don't like what he is doing, as you saw, I didn't like a lot of what he was doing. Get in there and do something about it as a citizen. I do think there is a high chance that Donald Trump can win, but I think there's a higher chance that the people can really help turn this around if they get involved. And I personally believe not voting is not the solution.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Not to cut you off, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I just wanted to know, do you guys think that there's anything the Biden administration can do horribly wrong that would really cost the election?
Listen, I want to say this real quick because I want to agree with you. It's a team game.
Yeah.
We're giving it a percentage because of what we believe that we're going to vote for him. And you mentioned the America Rescue Plan, the child tax credit came along with that, as well as the earned income tax credit. But we don't mention that here. Like, it took us until the end of the panel to mention that. And so we are so sure that he's going to win because we know these things that he has done that we can educate people on. And it's our job right now to do that. So do I believe there's anything so catastrophic that he could do that would ruin it? No, as long as we stay to what he has done.
I think it says something that when you look at the major criticisms of Biden, it's not on his policy, it's not on how he's handled particular affairs from the conservative side. It's always things like he's old, or he's bumbling, or he's senile, or he's something like that. That is the only platform by which they're going to attack him. And you got to consider, man, Biden has overseen an insane presidency. It was coming back from COVID and all the disasters relating to that. It's Russia invading Ukraine. It's Israel and Palestine and the complexities of that conflict. There's so much stuff going on in the world and domestically in the United States. It's the crazy issue at the border that Donald Trump messaged to the Republicans and said, whatever you do, don't fix this issue because I need it to remain open and hurting America to help me in the election. I think that Biden has overseen so much in this particular time period, but he's managed to pass historic legislation that he's done with a 50-vote Senate, and I think that he's risen to meet the challenges, and I'm going to be honest, in a way better than I thought that he would. I just hope that he kept the boat afloat. I didn't expect a $400 billion investment in green energy. I didn't expect, for him to answer the call on all these things.
We've got just a few more minutes, so this is a follow-up to this section. Who here, with a raise of hands, is currently planning on voting for Biden in the election? So if you're not voting for Biden, are you planning on voting independent? Is there any?
Jill Stein, Green Party. Even though I identify as a Democrat, right now, which I'm not saying she'll win. I actually think Biden has a better chance of winning because Trump shoots himself in the foot with his mouth. Biden, I will say, he has a more gentle approach. He's not picking at people, like he just acts like he doesn't know what's going on. But Trump has a more, how do I say this, overzealous personality, like he's too overly confident. Biden, he might not be the best person to me in the world, but he has a gentle approach. You know what I mean? And I feel like some people that were once supporting Trump see that he's an arrogant prick, see that he's stolen money from veteran charities, he's done all these different things, and he's supporting what's going on in Israel. So I think some of the Republicans that are Christian, but I'm not getting the faith part, will probably go towards Biden's more so now.
I want to hear from the other people who aren't voting for Biden?
Yeah, I'm undecided. I could see myself swinging Biden. I think, Stephen, you, especially just a second ago, raised a lot of excellent points, but my fear is that the average person, like the average working class American, isn't like doing that kind of homework and doesn't have that level of awareness. You know what I mean? So that's where I get fearful. That's where I'm kind of uncertain. But yeah, I can see myself swinging for Biden, obviously. I'm not gonna vote for Trump, I'll tell you that much.
I think John and Rebecca raised excellent points. I think that to answer, somebody posed, I think it was you, posed that question to us, do we think that there is one issue that could stop people from voting for Biden? And I absolutely do believe that it is Gaza. And I also think that the average person probably doesn't know, and that's why I will reiterate, we've got to do our research. Speaking of being fact appropriate, I want to say again, for climate, it's 400 billion, not million.
I think I'm going to go uncommitted. And like I mentioned before, this is, like she mentioned, the single most important issue to me.
If this is the single most important, you must have like a solution, right? Or an idea in your head.
Yeah, I do. I think that an immediate ceasefire
well, who are you propping up that you think will do that?
I think that an immediate ceasefire can happen. I just think that through Biden's administration, I think it can happen. And so that's the type of rhetoric from him and action that I would need to vote for.
But you know, Biden called for a permanent ceasefire 2 weeks ago, right?
And that's what I'm saying is that
and
it was an Israeli proposed ceasefire that he announced.
It's a permanent ceasefire.
A permanent ceasefire, and then I heard the Israeli member for the UN say that we vow to continue this war.
We're not the state of Israel.
No,
We're
I know, but I'm
States.
just saying that that's the inconsistency in the Trump administration.
We can't control Israel, though. Biden himself said.
We also have senators voting to send weapons over there, and it's across the aisle.
And
so
that's
again,
why
who are
locally,
we
and that
voting
is
for in
also
office?
too.
And we need to get out of this two-party system, and then we won't have these type of issues.
And I ask, what could Biden do to win you over?
I think that he can halt military funding to Israel in the time that a ceasefire would need to take place.
Half that military funding is defensive weapons, like the Iron Dome. Would you want to see that halted as well?
I would want to see offensive.
The Iron Dome.
I would want to see weapons used in Gaza now to be halted.
So you still would support about $6 billion then being sent to Israel from America?
I would halt all of it because we need to
hold
weapons. We need to hold the recipients of our aid accountable, just like
Egypt. So you would withhold defensive weapons from Israel.
And I would hold money from Egypt in the same way for closing the border on humanitarian aid on their side. I would hold them accountable for the aid that we give them.
At the end of the day, the way that this humanitarian crisis is being treated and the lives that are being lost is unconscionable. And to me, it's unfathomable to sit here and argue about that point in particular. Now, the nuance of the policy behind it, okay, and why that is, but if we can't agree that that is horrific what we are seeing, and I double down and bring back the Congo like it is, and everyone's like, oh, it's just war. So we need to understand moving forward, how do we want to move forward when it comes to these type of things, and who do we want to be?
I support the guy who called for a permanent ceasefire.
We're at like the last minute, so just anyone who speaks, like it should be final thoughts leading into the election.
Okay, I will just start just to get me out of the way. I am going Biden all the way. And I just want to say that if we're going to have problems with Biden, I want substantial disagreements and I want an alternative. I don't want, like Destiny said, Biden but. Biden but. Because whenever we talk about but, the only person that's been brought up is Jill Stein, and I don't hear any other thing. We can ask him, and you brought it up, we can ask for things, but you know, he's the incumbent president. We can ask him for things, but he's not going through a campaign.
And not to like go argue your point and cut you off from saying your final thoughts, but my point is that is it not the idea of being uncommitted to challenge the incumbent president that the support is lost at this point for what's happening over this issue, and so win back the support. And I'm not saying me particular, but I'm saying like, isn't that what politics is about? Is that being reflective to your constituents? And so that's what I'm saying is that this is my issue, and so I'm not in the matter of being closed off, but it's in the manner of moving in the right direction, like a permanent ceasefire, and then seeing that result.
But I think that's a fair way to approach. Like withholding your vote can be a form of utilizing your vote. I think that's fair to say. Just always be aware of what you're doing. If somebody says, "I don't want to vote for him because I can't support that," period, and you have that principled position, that is a defensible. I would disagree with it. But that's a defensible principled position. But just remember that if your abstained votes lead to somebody like Donald Trump coming in, it's going to be worse under Trump than it is under Biden. 100%.
Supports it. It's unfortunate, but that is an indirect result because the reality is he said he might have even done it.
And so that's kind of my idea of being uncommitted is that there's a side that I want to be on.
And I've made it very clear. I'm more in alignment with how you guys feel, but I'm also a realist as far as like what we're dealing with here. And I will never again, and many of the things that you said, I absolutely agree with. And again, for my closing, I'd just like to say I will be voting for Joe Biden. However, I do think there needs to be some accountability for what is going on, the tone deafness of all the lives that have been lost. But let's also be clear. This is going on all around the world, and we have supported that too, and we cannot pick and choose, especially when it's people that look like me are darker and no one's talking about it, and it's even more lives being lost. This is not the oppression Olympics. No lives should be lost like this. It's horrific that us as humans do this to each other. It emphasizes war and its policy. Well, we need to start being the country that pays into different policies. But the reality is that it's not going to happen under a conservative court, and that is why I'm voting for Joe Biden. We have a two-party system. We need to get more involved with who our local officials are and who our senators are, because let's be honest, Joe Biden is not supporting anything, no matter what it is, by himself. There is branches of government that he has to go through, and that is what we as a people forget. We cannot forget it in these elections. We may not have another one.
Guy, you have some words, I can tell.
Look, I can appreciate everybody's passion here. It seems like you got your heart's in the right place, and I'm not upset at anybody.
Yeah.
In the end, we're all Democrats. Our party
I love everybody's perspective.
Yeah, our party's a big umbrella. We allow all sorts of voices. But what I worry about is that what I'm hearing from a lot of you guys who are anti-Biden is we're gonna hope other people vote. And I worry too many people do that, and we gotta get serious about this, and we all have to take personal responsibility and carry him over the finish line. I understand, Mohammed, what you're saying. You're withholding your vote or expressing yourself to get your way. That's what the primary's for. This is the end game. This is the last 10 yards. And I'm confident as the summer starts to wind down, more Americans are going to tune in. They're going to start to realize, remember who Trump was, and I think people are going to get behind Biden.
Anyone else?
Oh, real quick.
I'm just, oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry, very, very quickly. I was just gonna say, to sort of restate my thesis that I was hoping to come here with, it's not that I'm pro-Trump, it's just that I'm anti-Biden, and to be honest, agreeing with you, just anti the way this system works. If I can just say one thing really quickly, the reason my trust in Biden has deteriorated to the degree it has is he was under investigation for the potential mishandling of some documents, some classified documents. The investigation concluded that he couldn't be held accountable because he was too mentally unfit. He couldn't remember conclusively when the years he was vice president, he couldn't remember conclusively the year his son Beau had died. Now, I'm not saying Trump is the right choice or even a better choice, but I'm just saying, I am of the opinion that everyone, when they go into those booths, should be as informed about both candidates, good and bad, as possible.
And I'm just so sick of this idea that like, oh, you know, you're hoping that other people will vote. Because the thing is like at the end of the day, our votes matter, yes, especially in local elections. But with the current way that the system is run, with the way that our elected officials who are in charge of placing our votes, our voices are very often not heard at all. So I am concerned that it is being placed, so much blame is being placed on everyday people who are hoping that other people vote. It's not that we're hoping that other people vote. We're just kind of like tired.
So why withdraw your seat from the table and then nobody will listen?
I'm not withdrawing my seat from the table. I'm voting locally.
I think if we had came to this discussion, that would be withdrawing our seat from the table into hearing everything that you guys have discussed, coming with an open mind, and then also saying our ideas, allowing between Democrats the discourse that we've had, because this is what's gonna either push you to be like, I need to reevaluate my position and move forward and vote honestly. And so that's why if you removed yourself and like, there's no way, this is what's happening, I'm not because of this. You have to be open to hearing.
And again, I'm voting locally. I am not, that is where I have actual power, is in my local systems. But I don't have as much power to vote for a president as much as the elected official who gets to say whether or not they want to.
Well, I just want to say that not vote for Biden is voting indirectly, respectfully, and you have that right. And I hear it's totally what you're saying. Is a vote for Trump. That's just what it is. And that is a person who's trying to take the rights of you to be able to vote for your local officials. And he's done that in Georgia. And so this is the nuance why we have to educate ourselves. The way each of you feel is totally valid. I think you all have stellar, amazing points, and it's very imperative that you're here because you represent large demographics of people that feel the way you feel. And those issues need to be addressed. We may not have that opportunity if we do not vote, because that is a vote for Trump.
All right, we're gonna have to end it there. Thank you all for being a part of this. Joe, you're even split, so you have to figure out something to get their votes. Thanks, guys. Let's wrap it up.
Thank you. Oh my God. Thank you. Well, I really am glad that you guys came. Like, seriously.
No, I appreciated everything.
I love these types of conversations. That's why we come.
I know. I love politics. I love to talk.
Yeah. No. I'm with it 100%.
I love it. Trust me. I disagree with you a lot, but I love your passion.